going to start with the seat. All the legs, of course, and all the components are based on the seat. The seat that I'm going to show you how to build is a Coopered seat. It has a series of bevels that give it that kind of smile that's so inviting to the sitter. I've numbered these boards 1 through 5, and I've, for demonstration purposes, drawn some bevels. Not at the 3 degrees that they will actually be cut at, but kind of overdone it so you can see where the bevels will be going. The outside edge of board number 2, both long edges of board number 3, and the outside edge of board number 4. Boards number 1 and 5 will really have no bevels. They'll both be at 90 degrees, as will the inside of board number 2 and the inside of board number 4. I've set my sliding bevel at 3 degrees using this bevel finder here. There are several different ones on the market. Something needs to be a standard for setting the bevels in your project. Then I can transfer this bevel to my joiner or the table saw if that's what you decide to use. In this case, I'm going to use the joiner. I've marked the board that I'm going to apply this bevel to, and I've marked the board with some cross hatches along the edge of the board. This will tell me when I have completed the bevel across the edge of the board. And it will probably take the same number of passes for each of the bevels to be made on all of those boards that require bevels in the seat. Okay, we've cut our bevels, and I've got the seat clamped up to show you that beautiful smile that we've been looking for in the Coopered seat. Now we've got to get the 20 inches in width that we're looking for. So doing a little math and a little measuring from the center line here, if I take off 3/8 of an inch on board 1 and 3/8 of an inch on the outside of board 5, then we'll have the 20 inches that we need. We've got our 20-inch width seat now ready to go, but it needs reinforcement. Now, when you reinforce the seat, you need to place either some dominoes or biscuits or dowels kind of low on each seat board on the edge to give it some reinforcement, because as we carve the seat, it's going to get a little thin, especially in front. So let me show you what we've got here. With a Festool domino, you can cut these mortises for the dominoes to fit in. And of course they mate with the other board to provide strength for the joint. It's a very necessary thing. If you use biscuits, biscuits are great for alignment, just like the dominoes are. But biscuits don't have the strength that the dominoes have. Dowels are really good. The only problem with dowels is that most of us don't have a horizontal boring machine. And that makes it kind of hard to put a dowel in, especially at the angles that are necessary. So I've chosen the Festool domino because of its strength, its ability to provide alignment when you're clamping up, and it's easy to do. There's 3 different mortising angles that you're going to use with the domino. The first is made on a board that is at a 90-degree angle to the base. That one's very simple. All you do is, using this as a bearing surface or a base, slide the domino up, aim it at the line that you have drawn that matches the line in the corresponding board next to it. Turn it on. And plow in just like that. Take your time, and the top of the mortise will be somewhere about a ½ an inch from the bottom edge of the board. This angle is actually an obtuse angle. The domino's fence will not open to an acute angle, but it will open to an obtuse angle. So to do this, I've got to make an adjustment in the domino. I'm going to flip the board over. This is the bottom of the board. And you see, the hard thing now is just to drop down the right amount so that the mortises will line up with the corresponding board next to it. So to do this, I'm going to flip the fence down. And I'm not going to tighten it up yet. I'm going to set it in position and let it read the actual angle that is there. Which, remember, we set that bevel at about 3 degrees. But we're actually reading it right now. And now we've tightened it up. Use a cutoff block with the same bevel as a test piece to set the height of your fence for this cut somewhere between 8.5 and 10 millimeters. That should provide alignment with board 1 or board 5. Set the domino in place. The only thing necessary on board number 3 is, as you plunge forward with the domino, making your cut, you just want to lift it so that you're registering not only the front edge of the domino against the base here, in this case being the bench, but the angle, the 3-degree angle on the edge of board number 3. So I push, lift the front, turn it on. What we've already done is to mark out the notches for the back leg. We use cut lines all the way around. It's 3 inches from the back of the seat, 2.5 inches in from the side of board number 5. And when you use a cut line, you want to mark it all the way around and then mark X's so you'll know what to take out. You don't want to take out the wrong piece. I like to register a reference off of the same place every time I mark out. So with this chair seat, I use the back of the chair seat, the place where all the boards are lined up, to be my reference point. Now, to find the location for the front leg, all I do is pull a measuring device out here, mark it with a cut line again. Come back and cut it in. Now, I'm only going to go 1/4 of an inch deep. This cut line will be 1/4 of an inch deep by 1 3/4 of an inch long. Now, the way to arrive at this point is by using the dowel calipers. We'll mark it exactly. There we go. Put a little tick mark there. And now, I know exactly the location for my cut line. Now, I want to mark it out all the way around. And I can see the edge of this cut line right here, and that's another benefit. It allows me to lay it in the little mark and cut through. Then do the same thing on this back side. If you have trouble seeing, or if you just want to see better, it's always better to mark out your cut line. And on walnut changes colors, but usually is kind of a dark brown. This has some sapwood in it, which is okay. But with all those deviations, and to stand out, I like to use white and to mark out my cut. That way when I get to the table saw, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm looking for. It's so important, because you can get turned around at any moment and make the wrong cut. We all do it. Now that's what I want to take out at the table saw. On boards 1 and 5. Notch for the back leg, notch for the front leg. For the back leg, we're going to start making a 3-inch rip cut. As you can see, standing on end like this, we're going to plunge right through it. I'm going to slowly move the blade up to hit my mark though. And I'm going to leave a little bit at the top so that when I make the cross cut, that little piece will pop right out. Let's go. The width of a saw blade is a kerf. I like to kerf out the notch between the cut marks on my zero clearance crosscut sled at the table saw. You'll just have to make a crosscut sled using one of the many plans available. It has to cut at 90 degrees. Zero clearance allows you to use the edge of the kerf to align your cut. Raise your saw blade and make a pass until you nick the bottom of the cut line that you laid out. Then carefully cut out between the cut lines and you've got it. You could use your dado blade and knock it out in 2 passes, but I like the control of kerfing it out. Use a router plane to smooth the curves before you route the rabbets with a power router. Set the cutting depth of your rabbet bit to 1/2 of an inch on your router using a test piece. Then route the front and back notches on both sides of boards 1 and 5. I try to leave a 1-inch tenon on 2-inch thick stock. I don't cut all the way to the end or the side of the back leg notch because it will be cut off and support can be a problem. If you have a perfectly flat router table, you can do it there by letting the notch's edge follow against the pilot bearing while using a starter pin for safety, of course. No matter which way you do it, take your time and try not to tilt your router while cutting. All right, we've got a Coopered seat prepared. It's not glued up yet. What we're going to do is we're going to draw the lines that will allow us to start removing some material from the seat with a bandsaw. And that'll save us a lot of time and save us a lot of health later. So I'm just drawing the boundary lines for the seat bowl. And of course, this pattern is in your instructional bundle. We're going to find a midpoint on this seat so we can plan the pommel. We're going to start removing material at the bandsaw with board number 3, but first we have to prepare the board because we've got a 6-inch pommel up here right in the middle, and this is our boundary line right here in the back. This will be the back of the bowl back here. We want to leave at least 1 inch in depth at the deepest part of the bowl. So if this is where we're going to start our cut, then we need to make a nice entering arc and then come down using your finger as a fence. You can follow it along, but then you've got right here, you've got a place where you need to start moving up toward this area because that's where your pommel is. And you're going to be a little higher right there, and then just moving down toward the front, sort of thinning out the seat board at that point. It'd be a nice cut. And you'd have to do the same thing on the other side. So your first cut is to come in, follow along, and pull out when you get to this point right here. If you don't, you'll cut your pommel off. Then we want to come back and finish our cut by cutting along this line and making kind of an angled cut that will take off this material right here. And there's a special way you can do that safely at the bandsaw. All right, this is board number 3. I've cut on both sides on the lines that I drew earlier because there's a 3-degree bevel on each side, and that leaves a little bit of a crown down the middle, which is fine. You're going to get rid of it with the grinder or whatever sander or sculpting tools you use. Next thing is we've got to remove some material on each side of the pommel. Now, we can't do it on edge like this. We have to kind of tilt it. Now, when we tilt it, we've got to make sure that we keep as much of the edge of the board on the table as possible and keep the cut as close to the edge of the board that is supported as possible. And line it up like this. All right, you see the angle is running that way. Lay it down, hold it with both hands, move it over toward the blade, trying to keep that same orientation, and just take off little bits at a time. That way, you don't have to be a hero and you're in control. I've got board number 2, 3, and board number 4 here. I've cut bowl number 3 on the bandsaw. And now I need to make the cuts for 2 and 4. The biggest problem is that if I just come along here and draw an arc, just tracing along the bottom of the arc on board number 3, and go to the bandsaw to cut it, I'm going to be sitting at a 3-degree on a 3-degree bevel, and that will cause me to get a little thin on the other side of the cut as far as the thickness I need for the seat. I've found that if I just take them and flip-flop them, just swap them out and move 2 to where 4 was, 4 to where 2 is, then draw it. What happens then is I've got them in position so that when I cut this out, I won't get too thin on one side or the other. It'll just be nice and flat. Also, where you start the cut is very important. You need to come to the inside line of the back line for your seat bowl and start your cut right there. If you started up here with your cut, you would take out some of the back of the seat that you're going to need. So you don't want to do that. All right, watch as I cut boards number 2 and 4. I use my grinder to sculpt the seat bowl areas of boards 1 and 5. I trace along the inside of boards 2 and 4 to get a line on the sides of these boards. The line on the top of the board comes from the seat pattern. The 24 grit paper takes care of this pretty quick and is very easy to do. It's easier than trying to make a difficult cut on the bandsaw. Don't try to be a hero. You can also use the grinder to sculpt out hard to get to places on the seat boards before you glue them up, like at the back of 2 and 4 and along the sides of the pommel on board number 3. I use Tight Bond 3 for all the glue ups on this chair. It has good open time and you only have to cover one of the 2 mating surfaces, and it's not going to show a glue line. It's important to avoid any clamping pressure that will lift boards 1 and 5 during clamping. The clamping jig I use is a big help in that regard. I start grinding the seat bowl by working in from the sides of the bowl toward the middle of the seat, kind of pulling the grinder in a sweeping radius. You will find a stroke length that will work for you. Try to avoid chopping cuts. Don't cut so heavily into the corners. More and more, I try to make these a greater radius, not so tight. They will also be easier to sand. Work the pommel away from the pommel toward the center the same way too. And then come back and clean it up with nice strokes with the grain. One side of the seat is going to be just like the other side of the seat. Use your grinder with the carbide head on it, the donut type head, if that's your option, or the Festool RAS 115 with the 24 grit Saphir paper is the other option to do all your major shaping. And then you just work up through the sanding schedule. Use an orbital sander, or put sandpaper on your grinder and get finer and finer. Use some scrapers until you finally have that beautiful smooth contoured seat that the Maloof inspired tradition just makes so inviting to the sitter.